Hello guys, welcome to another weekly breakdown video. Today I'll be breaking down the week of October, starting from 14th of October, as you can see, 2024, right? It is backtesting data, so bear with me. Right now I'm in my backtesting phase, meaning now I have understood how the market moves, why the market moves, why manipulation happens, everything. Genuinely, whatever you need to understand to become profitable in the market, I have understood that. So now it's just a matter of time. So once I start trading, I know for a fact, I believe in God and believe in myself that I'm gonna become profitable. I am a profitable trader. I believe in myself. It's all about looking at my mistakes and fixing them as with trading. So before going on to the front testing data, first let me see the news. Monday no news, Tuesday GBP news, Wednesday very tricky, CPI news. So Tuesday and Wednesday it's gonna be tricky to trade London. So the only day that I can see is Thursday. And I've also noticed one thing here. Whenever there is a huge amount of news like this on GBP and USD, on those kind of weeks, the price action is very weird. Like this week was a very weird price action. Even this week was a very weird price action, right? So yeah, even this week right here was very weird. I will show you why. I literally didn't took any single trades on this week. So Monday there was no news. So now going on the weekly, now starting from the weekly, the callouts I will show you. I will directly give the callouts to you in some other forms, like important callouts form. But as of now, my weekly bias is also not clear. As you can see, last week the momentum in the market was very low, right? Look at this candle and at this candle, compare these two candles, right? Clearly we can see there is a momentum difference, meaning the previous week candle momentum was very high and this week's candle's momentum is very low. So keeping that in mind, my bias going on to the next week, weekly bias was not one of the cleanest, and my weekly bias on DXY was clearly not clear. But if I was looking for something, it would be buys. There is a huge fair value gap to the downside, which makes so much of sense to fill up before going to the upside. Yes, it makes sense. But DXY, the bias is bullish, GU is bearish, but not one of the cleanest. So whenever the weekly bias is not clear, what we do? Yes, exactly. We trade the daily bias, right? So we will trade with the daily bias now. So going on the daily, my weekly bias is not clear, and also my daily bias on Friday was not clear. Thursday was a bullish candle, Friday was a kind of doji, and yeah, DXY also my bias was not clear. As you can see, it's a doji, filled up the fair value gap. There is a small fair value gap here on the daily which I have not marked. I believe I have. Okay, so it also made sense to go and fill up that small fair value gap, but according to how this Friday candle closed, it was a bullish candle clearly. And DXY, my bias was not clear. So because my bias was not clear, the weekly bias is not one of the cleanest, so we'll go with the daily bias. So this week on October, so on and so forth. So okay, so going on Monday, my bias was not clear, so what I didn't took the trade. Simple as that. I waited for the I didn't trade it Monday. And if I show you EU on this week, I will show you EU, because EU was so clean, meaning EU Monday was literally bearish. Like Monday the bias was not clear, and if I was looking for something, it would be sales because of how this Friday closed, but it was best not to trade. So Monday was a not trade day for me, just right. So now my GBP USD bias on Monday is bullish. So now that is when I go to DXY and expect it to be bearish, but in this case DXY is so bullish, meaning the DXY has been bought so aggressively, as you can see right here. So DXY is bullish, GBP USD is bullish. So is there any use trading this kind of markets, right? Are you understanding what I'm trying to say? Clearly we can see the conditions in the market right now is not clear. So here we can see on Monday there was no clear order block to trade from, so didn't took the trade, and also the price action is fucked, right? And in the situation we can't do nothing because the daily time frame we trade according to the daily bias. So the daily was not clean and daily was fucked up, so obviously I didn't took the trade. Simple as that. So now going on to Tuesday, my bias is not clear again because GU and DXY is bullish, so I will not trade Tuesday again. So Tuesday I didn't took the trade again. Yes, I did the due diligence, I went to the lower time frame, but on the video I will not show you that because that's useless. As you can see, if I go to the 4 hourly, the 4 hourly is literally chopping around between this zone right here, and these are the conditions in the market where we don't want to trade. And whenever the GU and DXY bias is not clear, or they are doing identical things, like in this case you trade EU is clean, bro. Genuinely we can see here EU Monday was bearish, Tuesday is bearish, right? EU is literally trading very nicely as it should. DXY and EU are aligning to the T, but GU isn't aligning. That is why you should adapt in the market. You should not predict, you should adapt. In this case, I can guarantee you for a fact that I would trade EU, because GU is not clear. It doesn't make sense to trade GU right now, because the price action is not showing us that it is tradable right now, right? So going on to Wednesday again, my bias is again not clear, and on Wednesday there is also CPI, so we are anticipating CPI to give us a bias, yeah. So which is exactly what happened. I'll show you a call out which is very important. DXY and EU were aligning beautifully and GU was lacking bad until Wednesday. But there was GBP news on Wednesday, which was CPI. One candle literally aligned with the DXY, as we can see. So we can learn here is a pattern that whenever GU is not aligning with DXY, we can anticipate the next news candle to align with DXY, like on this day. 100% true, right? What I'm trying to say right here is GU was literally doing fuck all. DXY was going up, EU was going down, right? But GU was consolidating. That's very tricky, or that's very absurd, right? That's very abnormal right there. So whenever things like that happen, that is whenever there is news, right? On GU there was CPI news, and stuffs like this don't happen often, like seldom, right? But in this case it was happening. So also we have learned one pattern here. That is what important. I have learned a pattern. Whenever things like this happen, the GBP, USD and DXY are not aligning, and there is news in GBP, like huge significant news like CPI, that can literally, what it will do, it will go with the bias. It only makes sense to go with the bias. Yes, it always has a chance that it can go against, but in this case I am a pro trend trader, I am a pro bias trader, so I would anticipate it to go to the downside. So now, just because I waited Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, if I was a GU trader, it is like, if I was, look, according to me, I would trade EU in this case, so no problem. This market condition like this doesn't bother me because I trade both EU and GU, so not a problem for me. But like Sal Sanchez and all, they literally only want to trade GU, which is very good in some case and very bad in some case, because in this case they would not find any opportunity, and even if they're forced to do something, maybe they will win, but their probabilities will be very low. So according to how this Wednesday candle closed, my bias going to Thursday was now clear and bearish. Even on EU, now it is aligned with the bias being bearish on EU. You can see EU is so fucking clean. Whole week it is just going to the downside. So EU was so clean. Now GBP USD, one candle literally aligned with the EU bias being bearish. So that is when I go to DXY, and DXY is also bullish, so it was so much aligning. But on Thursday, and also on Thursday there was no GU news, and all the other days there was GU news, so it was very tricky week for us to trade London session. But obviously Thursday there was no GU news, so the only day that I'm seeing a potential trade from is Thursday. I forgot what I did on Thursday. Let's rewind. On Thursday I waited for the Asian range to close, and after the Asian range close I was looking for a trade from this sort of supply zone right here. There was an M30 supply right there, and this supply zone was closest, but this supply zone was already mitigated by Asian range, so that was very tricky. So what I did was I waited, I took an initial position. This was the only trade throughout the week. According to my knowledge, this was the only trade where the price action was clean, the bias was clean, and this would be the only day which I would be looking for a trade. And if I had taken a trade, there is continuation here, which didn't make sense. Why? Don't take continuation trades whenever there is a clear zone to trade from. Like in this case, there was a clear zone to trade from. As you can see, head and shoulders pattern right here. The right shoulder was a beautiful supply zone which changed character, which also had a market structure shift, and there was a fair value gap, small fair value gap right here, and also this zone was literally lower highs, lower lows, and there was a beautiful market structure shift. So if I had taken a trade here, it would have been a loss 100%. So maybe just imagine that I took a loss here, right? And due to the whole week we didn't got any trade, so I risked another trade where in my session, which is New York session. So on Thursday London session literally didn't give us the move. The only day that was a good day to trade was on Thursday. Also on Thursday it was a loss. London session, at my timing, it was a loss, and losses are part of the game. Clearly we can see this is a genuine loss, and it would literally not bother me because losses are part of the game and I have accepted them as a game, part of the game. So now going on to the New York session, we did got our trade, but on this trade I didn't took because this was not at our timing. So even marking this is not relevant because I don't trade these timings, right? These timings I don't trade. I only watch the markets at this time and this time that I've marked, so which are the probably the most high volume time. But now the price action of the market is not clean enough. So on Thursday also it was a no trade day for me. It was a loss, to be honest. This week was a loss. Only trade that was a good trade, you can argue, was on Thursday, and it was a loss. So yeah, going on Friday now, my bias is again bullish on GBP DXY, and it should be bearish on the on GBP USD, right? So which is not the case, bro. In this case, literally GBP USD is bullish, DXY is bullish, and EU is clearly bearish. So in this case, what I would have done, literally what I would have done, if I wanted to trade GU, I would have literally went to the downside because of EU and DXY. Two is bigger than 1. I would put that logic, and this week would have been probably a losing week. Clearly I'm looking for buys on GBP USD, but I'm looking for sells. Why? Logically, technically it makes sense to look for buys, but when I'm comparing DXY and EU with GU, it makes sense to look for sells. That is when I look for sells on GU, and it was a bullish day, bro. It was genuinely a bullish day on GU, and which is obviously, it can happen in the market. Anything can happen in the market. You don't need to know what will happen next to make money in the markets, according to trading the zone, right? So also DXY was so much overstretched. As you can see, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday literally went to the upside. So a retracement literally made sense, right? The market has been going up for a long time now, bro. Whenever DXY gets strong, it gets strong bad, bro. As you can see right here, literally the market is making a huge up move. So whenever the market is just going up and up and up, it only makes sense to look for sells on GU, which if we did on Friday, it would have been a loss. I didn't even go to look for a price action on the lower time frame because it didn't make sense. And also on London session there was retail sales, so GBP was not a high probability trade anyway. So if I show you quickly the news, as you can see, the news literally made a huge move, came back. We didn't got the trade in our session, and New York session my bias was clearly bearish. So on New York session maybe I would have got some sort of sales, but nah, it was just not a good trade, to be honest, man. So I just didn't took the trade. So this week was a losing week, as you can see, and losing weeks are part of the game. This week was very, very tricky, but don't get disappointed, because weeks like this are the reason why good weeks comes, right? So now one by one I will show you the callouts. Here we can see the supply zone we marked did got respected. Yes, this is the trade on Thursday that I've shown you. The supply zone that I marked did got respected, but we took the trade on London because there was news on New York. Again on Friday the bias on GU is not clear, so we didn't took the trade. And if we took the trade, I would 100%, I can guarantee you for a fact, I would look for sells, even though the bias was not clear. So basically what I've learned from this week is don't bias a pair. Don't get attached with a pair so much that you only want to trade that pair. No, trade 2 to 3 pairs, and whichever pair is giving you an opportunity, take those trades, right? Don't be like, I will only trade GU or I will only trade EU. Select some certain pairs, some high volume or medium volume according to your liking, and distinguish between them. Whichever is cleanest at the time you are trading, that's the best thing to do. So this week was a very, very tricky week. It closed as a candle, something like that. And yeah, this was the weekly breakdown, guys. Hope you guys learned something from this video, and if you did, good, and if you didn't, also good. It's your choice. So yeah, soon you're gonna see me here, so be ready for that on the marina.